Welcome to Your Coach, Your Money, where we aim to educate and motivate our young athletes to make great financial decisions, become community leaders, and do amazing things in their lives. Today, we're going to be interviewing Ben Noll, formerly UPenn graduate, Detroit Lion, Dallas Cowboy, St. Louis Ram, current community leader in Tennessee, and a dear friend of mine. We're excited to have him on the show. I want to dig right in, Mark.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, sounds good. So Sensei, this is ultimately, oh, by the way, I got to do a backstory on why we call Ben Noll the Sensei. And essentially, one of the best players in the NFL back in 2008 at the center position was Andre Girard. And he was from Missouri. Did he play at Missouri State? Where did he play?
Yeah,
Missouri State. And Andre was a very good player. And Andre donned the name the Sensei for Ben Noll because Ben Noll could play every position on the offensive line without missing a beat.
Punter?
Right? No, on the offensive line. On the offensive line. Wait a minute. Punters cannot play offensive line. That'd be very bad for them.
No, I just couldn't picture Ben punting.
He actually plays rugby quite well. He's actually a very good rugby player. But little backstory, Ben and I met back in 2005 when we both when I was a rookie and he was a second-year player in Dallas. I obviously have a lot of relationship built with him, and he really helped me along when I was in Dallas. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't have a car. And that's the thing a lot of people forget is that when you go into playing professional sports, you go to a city, you don't know anybody. And unless you're playing like in the NBA where you're going to make a really lot of money on a small team, MLB teams, NFL teams, NHL teams, there's a lot of travel. Yeah. And there's a lot of things people don't know. So kind of where I wanted to start with you, Ben, is I kind of want to start at the end of your story and then let you shine light back to what helped you get there. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now. Tell our audience about what you're doing now to shine some light on, the amazing situation you're in. And then maybe let's work backwards and kind of figure out how the NFL helped you get to now.
Okay. No, I appreciate the opportunity, Mark and Matt, to be able to jump on. And currently I work for a company called Worldwide Technology, and no, that's not a Step Brothers.
Worldwide, prestige worldwide.
We've been around for 30 years, based in St. Louis. We're over $31 billion in sales, and majority of my job is just helping our Fortune 100 customers. That's mainly what we focus our bread and butter. Implement IT solutions, right? So everything from your Microsoft to your Teams to your cloud to your.
So Ben, you're really smart. You got a big brain.
All of that. Well, it took me 8 years to graduate from college, Matt. So I wouldn't necessarily think that we're really smart.
Most times that's for a doctor.
By the way, what was your major? I mean, most people don't ask.
So we went to this University of Pennsylvania business.
UPenn Ivy League school, by the way. UPenn Ivy League school.
They call people that go to school for 8 years doctors, Matt. That's what I like. It's one of those where I think being a college athlete though really separated us, being professional athletes, in the sense that we had to work with other individuals to be successful. Yep. When I look at the practice that Mark has built, when I look at the things that you were able to accomplish, Matt, in playing, it's because of the individuals that you surrounded you, right? So when you were playing for Dallas, for example, you had Jim and Britt as the healthcare professionals keeping your body together. You had Joe building you up in the weight room. You had
God rest his soul.
You had a tax preparer. You had a financial advisor. There was an entire team of individuals that you worked with that sharpened you on each particular aspect. And so at Worldwide, I'm just lucky enough to take that problem-solving things that I love doing and doing it for a team going forward, for Fortune 100 customers. So it's one of those things where I look back on that time period, and it was just grateful to be surrounded by great people.
I think that's a great segue to kind of mimic what Mark and I have built. And Mark saw a lot of positive in me, and Mark and I think a lot different, but we also get to the same conclusion, just might be in a different way. And I think that's great to be around people that don't think the same as you. because at the end of the day, that's where you can complement each other,
Yeah.
and be part of a great team. So as you talk about making that segue, Ben, tell me about a couple horror stories that you kind of remember where guys didn't surround themselves with a good team. Right, and I know, yeah, we can't be too exculpatory here, right?
Yeah, no, it's one of those where, at some point we need to do our welcome to the NFL moment, and I would love to hear yours. But in terms of my own horror stories and things that didn't go well, I'm from St. Louis, and so at some point I was trying to utilize a company that's based in St. Louis, and for financial planning, and what it's like playing. I don't have the time to manage my portfolio, to pick particular stocks. My mom wants me to put a down payment on our house. My sister wants money to cover X, Y. You know what it's like when you're playing. Barry used to store his $271,000 weekly check in the locker next to him, right? Yes. So it's one of those things where this is something where the players, we're trying to focus on ball, and so I trusted a name brand instead of doing my homework and finding a financial advisor that saw my own values and saw the way that I looked at the world and appreciated it, right? And so by signing up with that name brand, I had 2-3 years of performance, and then this great financial collapse occurred, Torillo.
We
that's when I realized what I actually had in a financial advisor. So it's one of those things where, I don't think, if you're a listener to this podcast, you may not be aware that the lengths that Mark and his team go to sharpen their own saw, how they go and they travel and meet with the best advisors in the country, in an offsite. They take an entire week of their lives to do this away from their friends and family, and they be able to hear the perspective of a Kevin Fennell, or a variety of other individuals who are top performers at their particular thing. So I want to make sure that these are things that my advisor back when I was playing for Cowboys did not do. And I ended up suffering the consequences of a horror story as a result of not having individuals that were sharpening their saws like that. So it's one of those things where that's why I appreciate Mark and the team that he's built, because it's intentional. There's are things that they're doing above and beyond what I ran into, and that's my horror story, Matt. I've never even told you that, but I was like, that's one thing.
I think you hit on some great things there, and Mark doesn't take enough credit, because at the end of the day, I look at him as a head coach, right? And my job is to do a role on a team, and he teaches me things every day that I may not know, right? And interactions, one-on-ones, how to manage a practice, right? And what you're saying right now for other players out there, and I think Mark can attest to this, is you have to know the people you're working with.
Well, you're only as good as your team.
Right.
And the important part of that is, Ben, when you transitioned out, to where you are now, the things that you learned in sports, really taught you to transition to the business world. I mean, we find that very often is that sports teaches you all the necessary tools in business, and ironically relates very well to finance as well.
It does.
Of time management skills, of making sure that you're sticking to your schedule, of making sure that if you've got certain macros you got to hit, or diet plans and things like that, those are all dialed in for you. But what was that transition like coming out of professional sports and then finding your niche or your way of where you wanted to go based on your major or relationships that you had?
That's a great question.
So, Matt doesn't even know this one. I was living with my beautiful bride in North Carolina. We're still just dating at the time, which she had just bought a house. She was doing residency, right? So that was a challenge, is that she was just starting her own journey in her career. And the 49ers called me up. And this George Warhop, who was also Matt's offensive line coach back in the day, was like, you need to come play for us. And so, Mark, it's one of those scenarios where you just you're a little stuck between what you envision and then finding that root happiness. And so luckily I knew that if I could take a leap and be like, what's gonna make me fulfill me in 5 years? Like, what is the thing that I'm gonna, is if choosing between this girl or continuing on my career is going to be a choice, what am I going to regret? And it was a scenario where the NFL just burns you hard, Mark. There are things, there are pressures there, from seeing your friends cut to aches and pains of your body to traveling constantly. And so I just believed in this inner voice in myself, and that's where, if you're a transitioning player, you've got to be able to figure out, are you really in love with this still? Like, are you willing to give up all those things for it? And so luckily I made the right decision. As Torillo can attest, my wife and I are doing great.
Amazing woman. Beth is an amazing woman.
Well, it's one of those where luckily I met her before you did, Matt. And so
You're lucky. You're lucky you did.
this is a scenario where, for my own self, I would say for players that are in that transition, the thing that really enabled me to have success was just building that community back up again.
Yeah.
Surrounding myself with 3 to 5 individuals that were going to push me to get better. Matt is a perfect example. Matt and I do not get along on a variety of topics, and I have no problem telling him that I disagree with him. And so you are as good as the 5 individuals that you hang out with, Mark. So it's a scenario where you've got to be very intentional about who you put in your life, how much time you give that individual, and make sure that those core values that they have are the same that you would have. So that way they don't, stress your integrity. But that would be the thing that I would say. That community focus is critical. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, yeah, a lot of guys don't have that. And you talked about, Mark asked that transition question, and in that moment, Ben, when you were in North Carolina, you had other people in your life to rely on and say, hey, is this the right choice? Because at the end of the day, when every decision in that moment between the age of 22 and 27 for an NFL guy, every decision is the final decision. And that's what people don't really understand is that, Ben was in a situation where he bounced from the Lions to the Rams to the Cowboys, right? He bounced all over, and you get in this scarcity mindset where it's like, when's the next call going to come? And then when the call comes, it's like being in the dating world, right? Like when you're single, you can't find anybody. And when you get a girlfriend, everyone wants to hang out with you, right? And it's the same thing for the NFL. When you're cut, nobody cares about you. And the second you get picked up, the phone rings off the hook, right? So, for the newer guys that are in the NFL, I guess, Ben, for my question for you, for rookies, and I want to break this into 2 parts. For rookies and first-year players that had a great experience, what are some things you want to warn them about? And then for rookies and first-year players that really struggled, what are some things you can say to look at the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I remember my rookie year, and this was before you were still, captain of Syracuse football team.
Boy.
You were still a huge deal that I can never imagine being. But I played 1,000+ snaps my rookie year. Started a game, had Eli Manning's first career victory. I scored in the 4th quarter to go ahead of Eli Manning. We were winning the game with 45 seconds left. I was like, I did my job. We've got this in the bank. And I got a nice paycheck there's a player performance. Every snap that you play as a rookie player, that was actually a good chunk of my salary that year was just the player performance pool because I was a dirt cheap thing. So for the individuals having success, enjoy that feeling. Don't take it for granted. Don't assume that is going to just be the start in a long staircase, because as Bill Parcells would tell you, the biggest step up occurs from first year to second year. And I would say harness and focus on that growth period, because very soon the thing that got you into the league is the thing that's going to kick you out, and that's because you're a cheap player. And so that would be the thing for the individuals struggling.
Yep.
I would say look at the individuals in your life. And are you having the individuals that are bringing you to go to an extra weight room session? Do you have it so you can not focus on the finances or girls or other things? Like, do you have a clean plate so you can just focus on the work? Because that's most likely what is inhibiting you from reaching your plateau of success. That's what's holding you back, is a lack of focus. It's the old Warren Buffett, if you want to accomplish 20 things, just circle the 5 on the piece of paper that you can actually do and get rid of the rest. That would be what I would focus on.
Well, I think those distractions are really what bring people down more than anything else.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at, just interviews with like Kobe or, MJ in the basketball world. It's like, they got in at 2 a.m. if they knew their competitor was in at 3.
Yep.
Because they were just so focused on, and we talk about it all the time, the delayed gratification, right? Is that it comes after all your hard work is in. It's not like, but now that I think that's harder because, right, new inductees into the NFL are coming off of NIL money.
Yeah,
that is sick.
And some guys are waiting.
And
some guys are saying, I'll take the NIL money.
And they don't have the delayed gratification of saying, hey, I'm at the caliber of physical level of play of the NFL,
But
they're making more money than a rookie in the past.
So to really emphasize that point, look how bad the quarterback situation is in the NFL. Right, you're hiring Kirk Cousins, 45 years old. Right, these guys are the college guys are coming out and they're not ready.
He's in Disneyland last week.
He was in Disneyland, and he met Justin Philippo, one of our other partners. They got to hang out. Right, but I mean, and God bless the Kirk Cousins of the world and the Nick Foles of the world. Right, because they're playing well past their prime because the younger generation is just not ready. And maybe it's because they made too much money. Maybe it's because they're too cocky. But when they get there, they're just not ready for the NFL, the speed and the size of the players. But let's go one further. Look at DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, he was telling a story about how he literally blew and squandered his first 3 years of money. He was spending upwards of $400,000 a month to satiate his family and his people around him. And then all of a sudden, his dad called him. I remember listening to the podcast. Dad calls him and says, "Hey, DeMarcus, I need money." He calls his accountant. Guy's like, "Dude, you got no money. You're out of money." "What are you talking about? I signed a contract for $40 million. It's gone." Right? So, Ben, I want to really emphasize your point about surrounding yourself with those individuals, because when you're there and you're playing, people don't realize how easy it is to go down that slippery slope of I can spend 20, I can spend 30, I can spend 40 grand in a month and not think about it, because that money isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
It's not.
But Ben, what's those relationships look like after sports? Like, you find there's usually a core group of people you surround yourself with, or maybe you connect with on a team. And then as you transition from team to team, right, you've got the U-Haul, right? Talk about a logistic problem itself is moving every so often.
Your family.
But what's that, what type of energy and effort has to go into really maintaining those relationships with guys that are just bouncing around everywhere?
Well, it's one of those where you really got to figure out who your true friends are, right? Like when you get cut, if you receive a message from somebody, that's interesting that they reaching out to you, because remember, like, you're competing with the individuals in that same room. The individuals you spend the most amount of time with are the same individuals you're competing with for the finite set of spots. So like that's a weird dynamic to go.
Yeah.
That doesn't get talked around about a lot.
Like,
I mean, seriously, like me and Ben were on the same team. We're friends. We were competing for the same spot. We were. So it was what it was. But in that fire, in that trial of combat, that's where you have each other's backs, and you build those lifelong relationships.
And there are individuals that I still keep into my life, because they bailed me out of jail, or they they lost a bunch of money in poker to me, or a variety of things that keep it. But like when we get to the shout out portions, and the fun part about it, Mark, now they're like adults that are like directors for the NFL, or doing important things, like still speaking to NFL people, teams on a so it's one of those things where like you're like, how is that individual? Like the fact that Matt and I were teammates of this Aaron Glenn individual, this Dan Campbell, like we can keep going, like, and like, it's fun to see them now achieve. So it's one of those where I think you maintain the people in your phone book that helped you when they didn't need to, and they were always looking out for you. And then that are still, you're gonna.
Well, I mean, I always remember how nice Dan was to me. I mean, Dan was like a seventh-year player when I was a rookie. And, Dan would take time to talk to me and give me pointers and, hey, you got to get after this guy. You got to have this persona. And I wish I could go back and talk to my 20-year-old self, right? And talk to myself about being a better business owner and putting more time into my diet and putting more time into the weight room, right? Like, this is what guys look back on and go, man, I wish I knew. I should have spent more time on this, Ben, talk to us about a couple charities and community events that you do. I know that you are a very religious man and you're very active in your community. Talk to me about what you're doing there.
Yeah, no, the Cathedral of the Incarnation here in Nashville is obviously a big thing. My favorite time of the year is to do Habitat for the Humanity and build a house with my other fellow parishioners. I don't know if you know Knights of Columbus, if you're familiar with that chapter. It's a Northeast thing. So those are the kind of things that fill my day. And then the other thing is just youth sports, youth athletics. Nashville Catholic Rugby is a big thing that I'm on, the finance board for. And so if we can get individuals the ability to travel and the ability to get some, additional coaching and insight, that's where I'm passionate, man, is helping the next generation, particularly those that share the same values as myself.
Yeah, the give back feature is huge, which, one of the main reasons why Mark and I connected is that, he's a tremendous community advocate, and, he won't ever talk about himself in this life, but man, we do so much charity stuff that, like, I thought I used to do a lot of charity stuff. Then I look at what he does. I'm like, holy smokes. I'm like, I only can aspire to be like that. Right. So I can't.
You got to give back.
You gotta give back.
We're all fortunate to have people that have input in our lives and help to get us where we are. So that needs to be disseminated to either the younger generation or other people.
I hope the stories that we kind of talked about today, when young guys look at them, or even people that are aspiring to play, pro sports, I hope they look at these stories that we're telling and they can reflect and say, wow, this might be me one day, and here are some of the pitfalls I want to avoid, and here are some of the things I want to do. Ben, this is our kind of a newer part of your Coach Your Money. We're going to do a call out where, we want you to set these dominoes up for us, where we can bring other people on the show and continuing to inspire young athletes, right? So I want you to call out. Yeah, Pat, we want to pass the baton, right? So we want you to call out maybe 2 to 3 people that we're going to tag in the episode, that would potentially come on, have a conversation with us just like this. I mean, we're taking a half an hour out of a random Thursday, and I think this half an hour might inspire somebody or help somebody that really needs it. So who do you want to pass the baton to?
Yeah, I mean, I first just comes up some of the relationships that we've built together. And so the first one's going to be Lusaka Polite. He's the director of outreach for the trust. So when I was with the Super Bowl with him, 2 weeks ago, whatever, 3 weeks ago, he passionately looks after former players and the current players, and is someone in a position of authority. So therefore, that would be the first one.
Awesome.
So my second one would be Freddie Scott. He's worked for Unlock the Champion, his own business, where he talks to the 49ers players, the Rams players, different players in the spring, and coaches them up. You remember those sessions, Matt?
I do.
They would come in with financial professionals. They would come in with, role playing. They would do a variety of things to try to help us be prepared for life after football. And so who better to do it than someone who's currently providing that insight and influence? He's a Penn State legend. So anyways, he's someone who will also, and then the third one, you can use this one or not. This Marco Riviera individual, is if you want a session about pork, you're going to get a good one with him.
Marco's a great guy, man.
It's more of like, I think Marco is at the stage in his life where, he put in a good work. He got to the Super Bowl, did a variety of, he's had a tremendous amount of success. And so he could speak more to the legacy, foundation, charitable side of the business. So those would be 3 different perspectives of people that I think that would do a tremendous job articulating how their relationship with you, Matt, saved them. So,
oh boy, oh my God! I mean, all 3 are phenomenal humans. But Ben, we can't tell you how thankful we are to have you come on and share this experience with us. I mean, this brainchild has been slowly growing, and we're gonna get this episode out there. We're gonna hopefully get 1,000+ views and tons of likes, and hopefully it blows up on us, and we can spread the good word.
And maybe we hook up over down in Tennessee again. And
we can't wait.
That was a blast.
There are 3 or so different players here in Tennessee that I would happily do a guest podcast if you are interested in doing that.
Oh, a remote session.
I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be in Tennessee. I'm waiting to hear back from First Trust, because they're doing a what's it called, the seminar down there, I think in May or June. So I can definitely bring a camera with me, and we can do a remote session, and it can be as easy as we're going to go to lunch afterward. Because I know for us big guys, we like to go get barbecue when we're done. And I'll tell you what, Tennessee's got some great barbecue places, just some great ones.
Well, Ben, thanks so much for being on today. Blessings to you and your family. Hopefully your success continues. We'll be praying for you. Matt's going to close us out here, but we want to thank you for being on today.
Appreciate you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Ben.
All right. Thank you for tuning in today. Just be advised you can find all our episodes on Your Time, Your Money. You can reach us at irontreefinancial.com. You can call us at 800-222-3202. Please check us out on all the social media pages that we're on, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X as well. And as always,
It's your coach
and your money. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Your Time, Your Money. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to share this with friends, family, coworkers, anyone else that you think might be interested. If you do have questions or topics, you can always email them to irontreefinancial@ceterais.com. Please follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Spotify, Google Play, and many other sources that were available. And you can reach us at 844-444-YTYM. And as always, it's your time and your money.